So with the new computer having arrived, the new monitors all set up, so I now have 2 monitors instead of 1, which is a totally new experience for someone like myself. I'm now in a position where I am able to read from the article I intend to cover, without having to continually pause and re-record segments, which should streamline this a little, since I have a number of notes in front of me to make valid points about certain things we are going to cover today. I know what you're all thinking. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Are you telling me Omegon's going to be all efficient and stuff? Yes, kind of. Okay, no, not in the slightest, since this is going out on a Friday, and I was meant to have put this out yesterday. Now, the article we're going to focus our ire on this brand new computer today, comes from the Daily Mail, where it says, Universal credit is women's human rights issue. Ex-BBC journalist tells MPs after revealing she turned down £32,000 a year salary, as it will leave her with £60 a month after child care. Now this comes from a single mother called Thuto, who lives unsurprisingly in London, so naturally the salary would need to be at least 3 times the amount just to be able to live in London, exist in London, work and be able to function in London. I feel like I'm putting an emphasis on London for a reason, and it's a very important one. You see, you can exist in London, you can live in London, you can work in London, but it is incredibly expensive. More expensive than many other cities in the United Kingdom. Private rent is through the roof. Hell, council rent is through the roof. It is understandable that the majority of very densely populated areas of London are quite expensive. It is a very sought after region. It is also somewhere where a lot of work is available. However, you, Thuto, are a single mother. Now I know you have a support network in London, that's going to be an excuse, and there is a video of you talking about universal credit, but you're actually talking about it from a very unique position, something that seemed very familiar to me, and I'm going to play the clip of you speaking about universal credit and how it benefits you, in that it doesn't, right now.
Under universal credit, and for me to be working simply doesn't work, and I found this out in July. So we tried again. My child turned 2 in August. I applied for a job. It was my dream job. I got the job deservingly, but on a salary of 32,000, we wouldn't be entitled to any universal credit, any housing benefit or any help.
Now this is relevant because it reminded me of certain rhetoric used for how benefits used to work in the past, where you felt that not only were you entitled to benefits, which of course you are entitled to state welfare, we pay into a system, naturally you should be allowed based on the rules the government create. I'm not arguing that. But the way you have spoken, there's a certain air of entitlement about it, but it reminded me of those who used to claim in the past that they could live on benefits, or want to be in a position where they could live on benefits and not have to work. You are a single mother journalist. I can't imagine you would want to raise your child in such an entitled environment. So I'm going to make it quite clear now, I do not believe that is the case. What I do believe is that you want to make a very grand point about how it doesn't work, but not from the position of how universal credit fails, which we can certainly talk about in a moment, but you want to use your isolated instance of not being able to earn enough to live in London as a grand point, which fails on the face of it. And I say that as somebody who lives in an area where you could live on a third of that comfortably, which would surely mean if you had any brain cells, which goes back to the support network, as your child is your priority, you would do the following. You would move out of London. You would move to a cheaper area and you would buy a season ticket to commute. So now we take your £32,000 a year salary and let's introduce it to where I live. The rents are much lower. The cost of living is also considerably lower, and the cost of childcare is also lower, meaning you'll be able to live on a lot more of your money to be able to give your child a much better quality of life. Now try and tell me that what you're trying to do is in any way noble when it comes to universal credit, which has, yes, been mismanaged, but to make some grand point about how it doesn't work when your problems stem entirely from something of your own choice is ridiculous. Also really silly. You shouldn't do it. Maybe ridiculous and silly are the same thing. Before we continue, because I thought I'd add a little random segue, yesterday in the post, a patron, very lovely patron, sent this to me. It's beautiful. Thank you very much for making it for me. and I'm glad you're enjoying your time on my Discord server, even with Discanard. Hi Discanard. Continuing with this article, Universal Credit has been branded a women's human rights issue by a former BBC journalist. Also, she's not working for them anymore, and she turned it down, it turns out, where she revealed that she turned down the job because it would leave her with just £60 a month to cover bills, because she pays £1,800 a month for a full-time nursery spot for her son. How much? My sister pays £25 a week over here. Ms. Marley was one of 4 single mothers who told the Work and Pensions Committee on Wednesday of their childcare problems under the new system. But it's not the new system that caused the problem. It's your desire to stay in an expensive area. The first job of a parent is to put their child first above all others. By staying in an area where you are then by definition impoverished is one of your own doing, and also bad parenting 101. They told how universal credit and high upfront nursery costs, because of the area you live in, meant working often meant they were only marginally better off than simply staying at home. However, and I would point this out now, having a good strong work ethic is key, using what you have, your privilege, to make a moral grandstanding point, which fails on the face of it because of what you turned down, when you consider how far it would go in another area. Hell, as a BBC journalist, you could have taken a job working for them in another area of the country. Ms. Marley said the system needs to change to examine individual cases, and you are quite right with that statement. But your individual case is one born out of stupidity. As I have already proven, you are making a mistake because you have turned down an opportunity because you clearly priced yourself out. Tell me, if 32 grand a year after all expenses and taxes left you with £60 a month to cover bills, how much would you actually need to live on? I'm guessing it would have to be at least 64,000 before tax. She told MPs, everyone talks about money, and all you will be losing is benefits, but they don't talk about the human cost, because that's not the relevant part to them. They're trying to assess what one person is entitled to, or what 2 people are entitled to. When you start adding compassion, you start running a risk of guilting people into giving more than what you should get. And I want to make this really callous point now. As someone that spent 7 years of his adult life on job seekers allowance, no one on benefits should live better than someone who works full-time. People who work full-time should be rewarded for that by earning more money than those that don't. Yes, there are individuals who do qualify for disability benefits. Some certainly have issues where they can't work. I'm not in this instance isolating them. I'm isolating those that have the capacity to work and turn it down for reasons that are utterly selfish, and then use that utterly selfish point to try and guilt people into giving them more, or use it to abuse politics, or think they can play politics, which is quite cute. They don't talk about the time I'm going to be out of the workplace and how I'm going to re-enter with a massive gap in my 40s. We already know about the inequality in pay and everything else, so it is almost like a women's human rights issue as well as it being a benefit thing. The inequality in pay, if you're going to reference the BBC, usually stems from the fact that those who are earning more happen to be men that have been there for like 20-30 years. They earned it. That's my view. They negotiated better contracts. Apparently, true equality can only be attained when everyone is given a flat rate of income. Apparently that's equality, not the equality of opportunity to negotiate a salary. Then again, you're a journalist, so I wouldn't expect you to get paid much for half the crap you guys conjure up. I also don't like this fact that you're using it now to talk about how it's inequality. If you're going to isolate claimants for single mothers especially, yeah, maybe you've got a point, because there are more single mothers than there are single fathers. That doesn't mean it's an inequality thing though, because a lot of people have been hurt under universal credit, which is where the problems start to rise. There are as many critics of universal credit as there are those that praise it, many saying they are better off on it than those who have been unfortunate enough to be caught out or caught up in the rollout, which has been somewhat unsuccessful in a number of areas, certainly where they were beta testing it, and it just sucked. The waiting period especially is an absolute joke. Nobody should have to wait that long, especially if it's not going to be there to the point where they might lose their home or not be able to get food, to the point where they have to go to a food bank or take out a short-term loan, which then when they get their rent, they pay back, but then have to pay additional interest, which then puts them in a worse off position than what they were in beforehand. To me, that is inefficient and a different type of callous, the kind I'm not overly keen on or one I could totally support. Hence another reason why I'm not going to be drawn in too much on the pros and cons of universal credit, because there are too many on both sides at this present time. The government has of course made pledges to streamline it and improve it, while they continue the rollout. The rollout is understandable because if you have so many different types of benefits, it makes sense to simply have one, a universal one, and do your best to make it work for everyone by having it means assessed to an extent. Speaking before Wednesday's hearing, Futomali revealed she'll be moving on to universal credit within months, and she expects to be significantly worse off once she starts working after paying out for rent, council tax and child care. My suggestion is the one I've already stated, so I will state it one last time for Futomali. Move out of London. If you want what is best for your child, you move out. You get a job, and then you work your way up the ladder, earn more and more money, and then when you get to the point where you can afford to, you move back if you can. That is my suggestion to you. Because now, minus adding your opportunity to be a journalist for BBC in the title, this is nothing more than glorified clickbait for 4 single mothers to talk about their woes, which is callous on the face of it, but at the same time it is accurate. Now, as I am genuinely curious, if anyone has had an experience with universal credit, please let me know in the comments below, whether it be positive or negative. I am very interested to know. So I hope everyone has a lovely Friday and some merry weekend, and thank you all for listening.
Oh, goddowns.
In your arse.
Imagine my shock